Well, here's a new one that I thought very relevant before I get into the old one we pointed out. I haven't showed you this one yet. From 2019, added to the growing list. Optical microscopic study of surface morphology and filtering efficacy of face masks. Somebody recently just sent me this, I believe, yesterday. Now, just right to the results. Now, the particulate matter filtering efficacy of 4 of the selected masks range from 63 to 84. So right off the bat, understand that means none of them effectively stop everything, even your mouth. Right? That's what this is, particulate matter. We're not talking about viruses here. We're talking about the idea of you coughing and sneezing. So even that only gets 63 to 84 depending on the mask. That's the best possible scenario, even in regard to the way that they know that they work and have always used them. That doesn't factor in the idea of viruses or the other way around. Right? The idea that, not the doctor gets coughing on the patient, but the sick person wearing it to try to stop them getting other people sick, or you wearing it because you think you're asymptomatic or you may spread, or all the narratives that have been pushed out. Even in that context, it's not even, it maybe at best 84. But then it goes on to say, interestingly, they found the efficacy dropped by 20% after the 4th washing and drying cycle. So this is specifically about cloth masks. And you know why that's relevant? We're going to get to next, because as of the most recent information, they are still swearing to you that only cloth masks are the best thing for you. Straight up and down that they're saying cloth mask, cloth mask, cloth mask. Why? Right? Why not? Why not continue to make other masks that maybe, why not stress N95 respirators? Sure, maybe we don't have enough, but yeah, use those acts to make more. That's not what I want. My point is that it's weird that they have the setup to do that, but they're not. And they're still forcing in the idea of cloth masks, even though we know they make you more sick, which I'll show you next. But the point is that everyone's wearing those because that's what the CDC is telling them to do. So they're wearing cloth masks. And you know what they're doing? They're washing them. They're trying to keep them clean. So they wash and they dry them. And it says that the efficacy dropped by 20% just after the 4th cycle. It says they have observed a change in pore size and shape and a decrease in microfibers within the pores of after washing. Now understand, even if you're using a fresh one every time, they're saying it's not effective completely. And that's even just stopping spit, right? But then you wash it and then the pores get worse. So if it's a surgical mask, well, it's not effective. If it's a cloth mask, it gets more and more ineffective as you continue to wash it. Stretching the cloth mask surface also altered the pore in size and potentially decreased its filtering efficacy. Every time you put it on. It says this study showed that the filtering efficacy of cloth masks were relatively lower, and washing and drying them deteriorated the efficacy. Right? That's very, very clear. So then, why? Ask yourself, are they telling you that you should be wearing them today as of July 16th? Only cloth masks. CDC recommends that people wear cloth face coverings in public. And remember, public means everywhere outside of your home and when around people who don't live in your household. This is cloth coverings may help prevent people from COVID-19 spreading to other viruses. You know why they say may? Because they know that that's not true. And they know that the studies have not verified it. Why would you say that? Okay, let me ask you this. If you did all these studies and all the studies only showed that the only thing it does was stop some of their spit from your mouth, and all the other studies that actually research whether or not it stops viruses, all of them came back saying that there wasn't enough evidence to suggest that that's what they did. Would you then go on to say, well, they may help you? Or would you say, do this because it stops spit from flying in people's faces sometimes? Right? I mean, realize that they're choosing to misrepresent. It may help you, and that's not inaccurate because who knows? It may. Does that sound like science? Knowing that CDC studies that they have their own information, right? This is the study that I keep showing you from May 2020 that flat out says that there is not enough evidence to suggest that these things do anything. And as Ben Swan even pointed out in regard to all of this, that this shows you that they, in fact, everything I've been saying, from the random controlled trials to the mask to the hand hygiene, everything Ben Swan went over and came to the same conclusions, which that can mean whatever you want it to mean. But the point is, plenty of other people are also seeing the exact same thing. That all of these came to the conclusion, as I'm just blanking on seeing it right now. In pooled analysis, we found no significant reduction in influenza transmission with the use of face masks. And it goes on to point out that it goes either way. Either way. Whether or not you're the doctor or the person sick or any of this stuff, right? This is in May. So they know this. This is their study. This is the CDC. So ask yourself why A couple of months later, they say something different. Because you understand, there hasn't been another study in the same way. There hasn't been. And this is what I find most interesting. As I keep showing you, another study from the NIH and the U.S. National Library of Medicine from 2015, it says quite clearly, cloth masks had a significantly higher rate of influenza-like illness compared to the control arm. The analysis showed that the virus was significantly higher in the cloth mask group. It compared to even medicals. It says the penetration of the cloth mask by particles was almost 97%. 97 and medical 44 in the best case scenario. Meaning viruses get through no matter what you do. 50% of the time, might as well not wear it. Because I understand that doesn't mean that one time nothing gets through, the next time some gets through. It means that every time half of it's getting through. So it doesn't make any difference. So knowing this, ask yourself why they decided to update their mandates and say, well, yeah, you know what? Now we just think you should wear cloth masks. Here's something interesting. Here's an Instagram post that says, and this is accurate. I've found this in multiple places. This is paperwork from the CDC after the person got tested for COVID. It says the CDC does not recommend that people who are well wear a face mask to protect themselves from respiratory diseases, including COVID-19. So COVID-19, meaning, so this is after this has been going on. But here's what it looks like when you actually open the page. False information reviewed by independent fact checkers. So a document during this about COVID-19 from the CDC is false. Interesting. Well, let's find out why. Oh, look at this. The claim is based on outdated guidance. The CDC now recommends masks for all. So this guy gets a paper from the CDC. He goes home, he posts it. They say it's fake news because, well, they've updated it. Can you believe that? This is actually what they link to. And it says that the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention recommend that healthy people not wear masks. No, that's not true. Why? Because they revised their guidelines in April. Okay, based on what? That's what we were pointing to here. Well, if you actually look into it, the only thing they link to is emerging evidence from clinical laboratory studies. And if you go through every single one of them, 90% of them don't have any posted information, so you'd have to take their word for it. And the other ones don't even seem relevant to the discussion. I went through every single one. The point being, as Ben Swan points out himself, we're showing you studies that verifiably prove that their conclusion was there's no evidence to suggest they say they protect you. From 2015, 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20, all the way. And they still tell you the cloth to help you, even though the cloth very clearly in their own study says they get you more sick. Right up until April, they're saying don't wear a mask because it won't protect you. And then suddenly in April, they decide to change that based on no study, no new compilation of information from the CDC that did exactly what these studies did. Nope. Or rather this one. Nope. None of it. They simply point to a compilation of abstract studies from other locations as if developing information suggested. And all it really comes down to is that, it may help you. It's most likely to reduce the spread. And that's a flat out lie because their most recent study literally said the exact opposite. So what the hell are we talking about? What we're talking about is a concerted effort to absolutely deceive you in every possible way for control. And it's alarming that they can have stuff like this and actually point to the CDC itself saying something and say that's fake news. Because a month after that, they changed their mind based on pressure from political people. Pretty crazy, wouldn't you say? Here I post a video that I made just the other day saying exactly this. All the mass studies from the CDC and NIH have come to the same conclusion. They don't protect you. That is 100% accurate. Now, you could argue that they're wrong, but that is 100% accurate. And all somebody can respond with is they protect others. So not even reading it or looking at it or checking out anything we're doing, they just respond with their reflexive response because they know that's not true, because Fox said, because CNN said, right? Or maybe even because they've chosen to research one person who is adamantly saying that's the case. Are you researching their documentation? Most likely not. You know why? Because that documentation doesn't exist in regard to the argument I'm making here. But he goes on to say they mitigate it, not stop it. But okay, this is the point. If you're wearing a mask and 30% of it gets through, that means every time 30% of that virus is getting through. So you could argue that in some way minimizes it, which, by the way, there's no evidence to show that based on all of their studies. But at the same time, we know that masks actually create an unsafe environment, as OSHA itself has pointed out. I have all kinds of documentation from OSHA saying that 19.5 is the oxygen level, 17.5 becomes dangerous, and that's exactly what happens in every test we've ever seen in regard to wearing a mask for a period of time, right? The point is that, yeah, you can wear it under that level for some time, and it won't kill you. Maybe you'll get a headache and have some problems, but if you're going to make this a mandate, and it's every day, and it's 90 degrees outside, and children are playing in the playground with masks on, that will have a collective ongoing effect that will never stop. And I'm sure they'll have drugs ready to go just for those headaches, right? Very effective at slowing the spread. And all I can do is respond and say, look, the science from the people you're actually thinking you're referencing literally say otherwise. From every year between 2015 and 2020, every time they came to the same result. There's no evidence they work. And I said, here's a few, and listed 4 of them. But of course, they only read the last one and says that this is only about one thing. Coronavirus is not an honest representation, right? Again, and it just baffles me. Because all 4 of these are varying different things based on different things. Influenza, rotaviruses, different locations, household studies, random controlled trials from the NIH, the CDC, and OSHA. And yet all they can say is that that's not a good representation. Do you realize what we're doing? I mean, it is, we're fighting against a cult. Just like I pointed out the other day. When you try to rescue somebody from a violent, sexually abusing cult, in some cases throughout history, those people will actually violently defend their captor because they're brainwashed. Decades later, they go, my God, I don't even know what I was doing. I was completely lost. But they'll fight to the death to maintain their captor's imprisonment of them. Same thing here. Now, of course, I link Ben Swann's video after that and just say, did you read all those things or but one? And of course, somebody else follows up and says, this guy's video, and this is the point I was making earlier, was literally featured on Russia Today. Oh my God. This is literally just propaganda using cherry-picked and out-of-context research. So he's claiming that every single study on this topic from the CDC and the NIH from 2015, 2020 are cherry-picked and out of context. I mean, just think about how ridiculous that is. Think about how ignorant that is.